There's not a teacher out there in the K through 12 system that will agree with what Chris Hayes just said. Not one. Not one. Because teachers know that what Chris just said is a load of bullshit. Welcome back, everybody. Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Whew, boy, is he dumb. I didn't know he was this dumb. But first, they're going to talk about why they lost the election and what they have to do going forward. We'll see if they can figure it out.
But it's also the case that, like, all of the reflection that happened after losing that election and trying to figure about how do you win back people you lost was real and true. And I guess my feeling is you got to fight, you got to try different things, and you have to be authentic. You can't, like, reverse engineer any of this off a blueprint. And I really think this is true about politics.
What are you fighting for? We're going to figure out guys. We're going to figure out this channel. We're going to figure out in the next, I don't know, 4 years, maybe we'll figure out what Democrats want and what they're offering. Depends on what he talks about here, but we'll see what topics he thinks are important.
Steve Jobs once said, it's not the customer's job to know what they want. Like, it's our job. And
this guy thinks he's comparable to Steve Jobs.
What happens in the end of an election is everyone sifts through the data and they come up with their perfect, their plan based on, well, this worked and with this group and we got attack here and there. And what politics about is a certain point is like innovation and communication. You got to come up with new stories.
Well, I mean, this Ken Martin guy, he said something I've heard Democrats say a lot. We didn't get our message out. Maybe I'm paraphrasing. He said this before to Democrats. No, you did. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You did get your message out, and people don't like the message. And I mean, the message they sent here, they began it with a land acknowledgement. And I did a whole bit about land acknowledgements, either give it back or shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Right.
And to me, that's signal.
That was a signal.
We just don't get it because you're not going to give back the land.
Right.
It
is an empty gesture fundamentally.
Which is what they're so good at.
Yeah.
This discussion also is nothing new under the sun. If you read old magazines, I have a lot of vintage material.
All right.
A lot of vintage magazines, a lot of political stuff. Even social justice warriors, they're not a new phenomenon. They've been around since the 60s, 50s. They've been around. The terms, like we cycle through. Like none of this stuff is new. The land whole thing, give that back. That shit's not new either. Like it's almost boring. But people die off, and their kids, they don't know that we've already hashed out these topics and these discussions, reparations, all this stuff. It's been going on for 100 years, guys. This isn't new stuff. Don't be fooled.
I think that I don't think there's anyone who hasn't had a moment across the political spectrum of some form of progressive communication that's either left them bewildered or a little like, I don't know about that. But I also think at the same time, there is a message of what I would call like common sense, patriotic pluralism.
Yeah.
That is a majority message, which is like, if some father and mother have healthcare for their kid lined up who's trans, just stay the fuck out of their business. And let them make that decision. That's their decision to make. And you don't have to make that for.
Remember what I said earlier in the video? Let's see what he brings up. Let's see what he talks about. And they blame the right, too. This is what they say. Oh, the right, they can't drop the trans issue. This is you bringing this up, Chris. Nobody said go out there and talk about transgenderism. Nobody said talk about surgeries and kids. That's you. You're talking about it.
That for your family. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your family.
But the argument is whether the child should make the decision.
But the child is never making the decision. The parents are always making the decision. Parents consent to medical care.
Are you fucking dumb?
This is the most naive thing I've ever heard. I've been a foster parent for about 3 dozen children, foster or proctor parent for about 3 dozen children in the last decade, 15 years. To say what Chris just said is proof that he has no idea what he's talking about. And so he should not be talking about these issues. He has no idea the evil that goes on in homes. He has no idea just how sadistic parents can be to and with their children. This guy's a fool. He shouldn't even be on television. He's put here as some expert constantly fixing his glasses. He's not even smart enough to resize his glasses. Now, if you pay attention, he'll just, come on. The guy's on television. He should be watching himself and at least noticing that he's constantly adjusting his glasses. So this is somebody who's just an idiot, a moron, doesn't pay attention to what they do, doesn't pay attention to what they say, doesn't double check themselves, doesn't ask questions, doesn't get off stage and say, did what I just say, did what I just say prove that I'm an idiot and a moron? No, he doesn't do that. Of course he doesn't do that. And the mainstream media doesn't do that. This guy's a moron. And I'm not surprised that Bill doesn't correct him because Bill doesn't have kids. Bill has not been there's not a teacher out there in the K through 12 system that will agree with what Chris Hayes just said. Not one. Not one. Because teachers know that what Chris just said is a load of bullshit. Is 100% a load of bullshit. Is Chris Hayes about to argue that parents don't need to send their children to school? Because there's a lot of parents out there that would not send their children to school if it was not illegal to do so. A lot. Why? Because it's work. It takes effort. The reason they do it is because we make it our business as a society.
But I mean,
Somebody knows that is the case.
I think in the vast majority, and we've been hearing from parents right now
Yeah.
whose kids' medical care has been interrupted. I think there's a way to talk about.
Well, of course, they would say it's not medical care.
Sure.
They would say
That is what they're saying.
disfiguring a child.
I think they should mind their own business. I really do. I think they should mind their own business. And I think that's true about a lot of things. I think there is this sense in which there was this sort of backlash politics, some of which I understood, some of which people I know felt that way. I don't think what people wanted was for the women CIA agents at the CIA to be told that they can't get together once a month to like celebrate former women spies. I just don't, I think like fundamental parts of what we call in this country the traditions of pluralism, which is what this country is. And pluralism is another word for diversity. If we're not going to use that one, let's use pluralism. That fundamentally there's a majority that understands that like we all come from different places.
Yeah.
And part of what makes this country work is we acknowledge and we negotiate those differences.
We can't listen to this guy talk about women. This guy, I assume he's a guy, believes that if your religion thinks it's okay for female genital mutilation, female circumcision, that it's none of our business, that we shouldn't get involved in it. He thinks that the laws protecting women from female circumcision are bad and that they get in the way of other people's rights. Idiots. What you just said is why the left lost.
We call in this country the traditions of pluralism, which is what this country is. And pluralism is another word for diversity. If we're not going to use that one, let's use pluralism. That fundamentally there's a majority that understands that like we all come from different places.
Yeah.
And part of what makes this country work is we acknowledge and we negotiate those differences. And that's a thing that I think Democrats can win back a majority of messages. I do.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, we all come from different places. And in some places, female circumcision is legal. Should it be none of our business? Should we be okay with mutilating girls? It's none of our business, right? If parents if they choose to do that, right, Chris? You dumbass.
I'm retarded?